mynews.studio.
Sunlit deserts in Algeria, bustling European cities, and billions flowing into green energy. How did 2025 change the landscape for global investment?
Today is 2025-08-29. Let's get right to it. The numbers are striking. Global clean energy investment reached $2.2 trillion this year, more than double what's going into fossil fuels. That's a dramatic shift from only a few years ago. Do you remember when fossil fuels were the default choice?
I remember. And now, solar energy really stands out. $450 billion went into solar alone, making it the largest single area of energy investment worldwide. Why is solar attracting so much capital right now? What's fueling this focus?
It's a combination of policy and economics. In Europe, we've seen big policy moves: the Repower EU plan, the Green Deal Industrial Plan. These aren't just headlines. They're actually accelerating renewables and domestic manufacturing. It's a push not just to import green technology, but to produce it locally, right?
That's right, and energy security is a major factor too, especially after recent geopolitical events. Europe is making the shift a top priority. But if we look at the numbers, China still dominates, accounting for 44% of global renewables investment. That's nearly half, even with new rules slowing some large solar projects. China's investments in grid upgrades, like the ultra-high voltage transmission lines, are significant.
The part that really stands out for me is Africa. Solar panel imports there jumped 60% in just 1 year. 20 African countries reached new highs. Nigeria actually surpassed Egypt as the continent's second biggest importer. And Algeria's imports, 33 times higher than before. But I have to ask, are all these imports actually making a difference in electricity access for people?
That's the core issue. For some countries, Sierra Leone, for example, the imported panels could meet over 60% of last year's electricity demand. For Chad, it's almost half. But here's where it gets tricky. It's not just about getting panels in. A lot of places don't have the grid infrastructure to handle the new capacity.
So even with record imports, there are still big roadblocks. Grid expansion is slow, and financing is tough. Since Africa relies heavily on imports rather than local production, currency risks and supply chain delays become bigger issues. Does that mean solar isn't as economically attractive as it seems?
Actually, the economics are strong, especially in places like Nigeria. Switching from diesel generators to solar panels can pay for itself in just 6 months. But economic sense doesn't always translate into action if there are structural barriers, like limited financing or slow grid connections.
What about technology transfer? Are richer countries helping share their technology and expertise, or is the relationship mostly about selling products to developing nations?
So far, the support is still quite limited. There are some international programs, but most African countries depend on imports and have little domestic manufacturing. There's more support than before, but not enough to close the gap for a truly global transition.
Meanwhile, Europe is working to localize supply chains, modernize grids, and boost resilience. China is focused on grid upgrades, but is being cautious about new, large-scale solar projects. Do you think there's a risk that these advances could leave emerging markets further behind?
That risk is real. The transition isn't happening evenly. While advanced economies and China are moving quickly, many emerging markets still struggle with access and infrastructure. The scale of investment brings hope, but real progress depends on tackling these persistent challenges.
So, what does all this mean? We're seeing record investment, new leaders in solar imports, and policies pushing markets forward. But at the same time, some regions are stuck, figuratively and literally, because of infrastructure and access issues.
It's a pivotal moment globally. Climate concerns, economic pressures, and energy security all demand change. The real challenge now is making sure the benefits are shared widely, so that technology, investment, and policy align beyond just the wealthiest countries.
To sum up, in 2025, global investment in green energy reached $2.2 trillion, with solar leading the way. Europe and China are setting the pace, while Africa's solar imports are breaking records. But the main barriers remain: financing, grid infrastructure, and fair access to technology.
There's huge potential, but also significant hurdles. The world is investing more than ever in renewables, but turning that investment into benefits for everyone is the next challenge.
Thank you for joining us. This episode was brought to you by mynews.studio. Give it a try for free.